read the last applicant into the record, 613 Webster Road.
613 Webster Road, wastewater treatment plant improvements. Located at 613 Webster Road, applicant Mayor Darrell Burks is requesting an extension of non-conforming use associated with proposed upgrades to the Village of Webster's wastewater treatment plant on a 10.10 acre parcel having SBL number 065.10-1-13/web located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 350-19 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening. My name is Don White. I'm the attorney for the Village of Webster. With me tonight is Matt Higgins, who's an engineer with Labella Engineers for the Village of Webster. As most of you are aware, the village is in the midst of the planning process for upgrades to its wastewater treatment plant at 613 Webster Road. The village has had its wastewater treatment plant at that location since 1934. And it has undergone several upgrades since that time. The primary upgrades that the village is proposing at this time is the construction of two new 3,320 square foot trickling filters and a 4,200 square foot septic receiving station. There already is a trickling filter there, so ultimately there'll be two trickling filters, not three. The old one will get ultimately torn down and two new ones are built. Other than that, and Matt will go into this more detail, the bulk of the project consists of replacing much of the equipment, pumps and things like that, HVAC, to make the plant much more energy efficient and compliant with current codes. The village is not seeking, nor is it required to have any area variances. This is not an application for an area variance. So despite the fact that the village filled out the town's statement of difficulty for area variance, that really doesn't apply. This is, because it is a non-conforming use, the use as a wastewater treatment plant is grandfathered into the town zoning. What is required is the extension of a non-conforming approval for an extension of a non-conforming use under section 350-91 of the Webster zoning code. And it's a very short statute. I'll read it to you. A non-conforming use shall not be extended or increased except with the approval of the Zoning Board of Appeals and upon such reasonable restrictions as it may prescribe, depending upon the nature and history of the use and the effect of such extensions on neighboring properties, including but not limited to traffic, noise, property devaluation, drainage, sewage, odors, and other such deleterious effects of such extension. And I'll have, when I turn it over to Matt, he'll go through the effects, if any, on neighboring properties of the proposal. But two things. First, I'd like to point out, seeker's already been taken care of. The village had itself be lead agency. The town was on notice. The town didn't have any issue with that. And the village took a negative declaration 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, we have copies.
Very good. The neighbors have some questions and concerns about the septic receiving station. And I'm sure you're going to hear from many of them this evening. Before you do that, I'd like to point out that in 2016, the neighbors, principally Michael and Polly Kahn, who are sitting here, sued the Village of Webster over odors at its wastewater treatment plant, principally odors caused by composting leaves with septic sludge. That lawsuit was settled in late March of 2018, and there is a written settlement agreement that settlement agreement expressly contemplates and provides that after the village, well, it was a two-step process. I'll step back for a second. The village agreed and the plaintiffs agreed that the village would first investigate the construction of an off-site septic receiving station somewhere other than 613 Webster Road. And if it was economically feasible, it would not have septic receiving at its wastewater treatment plant. And it was determined that if it could do it and the cost was not greater than $100,000 than to build it at the 613 Webster Road, that it would do it off-site. Well, the village engaged Labella to try to find and get estimates as to the cost of an off-site septic receiving station, and the cost was way more than $100,000. And all of that documentation was provided to the attorneys for the Cons and the other neighbors. So the agreement then goes on to provide that if it is determined that the estimated cost to install a septic receiving station and associated building and equipment at an alternative location within the village of Webster is greater than $100,000, or the engineer's estimate to construct a septic receiving station and associated building and equipment at the wastewater treatment plant, then the defendant will only begin accepting septic, RV waste, or any other similar material at the wastewater treatment plant after defendant completes the construction of a septic receiving station inside a new building with HVAC control dedicated for this purpose only, and such system becomes operational. The building will also be constructed with a garage bay and door of sufficient size to allow entry of a typical septic hauling truck or RV inside, and the closing of the door before discharge is commenced. The defendant shall also install a subgrade flow equalization tank downstream of the septic receiving station and a pumping system, if necessary, to control the rate of discharge of the content of this equalization tank into the wastewater treatment plant influent sewer. So as Matt will further explain and show the board, what is contemplated in the village's project is a septic receiving station that meets all the criteria that both the Cons and the rest of the neighbors agreed to back in 2018. And I would also note that the village did agree and has no intent to accept any leachate at its wastewater treatment plant. That won't happen. Also in the agreement, the village agreed that it would limit the total number of septic haulers to 7. So if you hear that the whole reason the village wants to receive septic is to make money, that's simply not true. The village, it's really, people that have septic tanks, they get them pumped, it's got to go somewhere. So they're just offering this to up to 7 septic haulers. So I would just say, with all due respect to the neighbors, they can't have it both ways. They can't accept the money and settlement from the village and now complain that the village is going to put up a septic receiving station that they already agreed to.
Can you all just one second? I'm sorry.
Okay. And so at this point, I will turn it over to Matt, who will address the effects, if any, on the neighboring properties of the proposed upgrades that the village contemplates. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Matt Higgins. I'm a civil engineer at Labella Associates here in Rochester. The Village of Webster hired Labella to be the design engineer for all phases of this wastewater treatment plant improvements project, and I am Labella's project manager for the project. So, as Don noted, the village has owned and operated a wastewater treatment facility at this site at 613 Webster Road since 1934. The village has undertaken efforts to continually improve it over time to form the facility that's currently there in operation. The village is now proposing an improvements project that represents an extension of an existing non-conforming use, as Don detailed. I would like to briefly highlight the following items and then be available for questions from the board. I'll go through the general scope of the project and, as Don noted, the anticipated impact on traffic, noise, property devaluation, drainage, sewage, and odors. First, what you see here on the easel is the existing condition of the treatment plant. It's north is up in the figure. Webster Road is along the right side of the figure.
Excuse me, do you think you can move that up so we can
Sure.
see it on the board? Thank you.
Is that better? Thanks. So what you see there is the existing conditions as it is today at 613 Webster Road. As Don noted, one of the major items of work is replacing the existing trickling filter, of which there's one large trickling filter currently located right here. It's 150-foot diameter with a large dome, which is why it's white in the aerial image. Replace that one existing trickling filter with two new, much smaller trickling filters. Because the village, as part of this project, will be disconnecting its treatment system from that of the town, this item of work is required by the Department of Environmental Conservation to provide the necessary redundancy at the village's facility. So the one large trickling filter tank you see in the aerial here will be replaced by two much smaller trickling filters. The second major item of work proposed as part of the project is to construct a fully enclosed septic receiving station with a buried tank to receive septic, which is proposed to be in full compliance with the legal settlement that Don documented. There are smaller items of work, including equipment replacements, pumps, valves, pipes within existing buildings, digester structural rehabilitation to make the digester operation improved, and electrical and mechanical and plumbing improvements to the site. I'll just show you two quick images here. I'm going to move away from the mic and show you. This is the proposed site plan. So where you saw one large trickling filter here, you now see two much smaller ones. You can see the dotted outline of the existing trickling filter here for reference. So you can see that the two proposed new ones are much smaller. And down here, where there's currently grass adjacent to the digesters, is proposed to be constructed that structure there that you see in this image, right down here. So that is the, a rendering of the proposed septic receiving station, and I'll just detail now the compliance with the settlement that Don noted. Hopefully you can hear me. All right. The intent here is that a septic hauler pull in and pull into this door. This door is an mechanical overhead door. So they pull in, that door closes, as well as the door on the far side before anything else happens. So part of the settlement was ensuring that an enclosed bay be provided for which a septic hauler can enter, and close both doors to completely enclose the vehicle before any septic discharge occurs. So that is provided for as part of this building here. The other thing I'll note is that in the site plan, there's a, let's see if I can do this. There's a rectangular structure here that is the buried equalization tank. You'll note that you don't see a tank right here. And that's because all you see are hatches because it's required to be below grade due to the text of the settlement. So having pointed out those items, I'd like to specifically note anticipated impacts to traffic, noise, property devaluation, drainage, sewage, and odors, as noted per the town code. First, traffic. Along Webster Road, New York State Route 250, where the wastewater treatment plant is located, the average annual daily traffic volume counted by New York State DOT estimates an average of 5,810 vehicles per day along that road. That includes 235 trucks. The village estimates that the proposed improvements will add 7 trucks per day due to the septic delivery. So it's a very small anticipated impact on traffic. As far as noise, the proposed improvements are not anticipated to increase noise level at the site because the nature of day-to-day treatment, the nature of the site will stay as is. It is currently and will remain simply a wastewater treatment plant. Property devaluation. As I just mentioned, the property currently is and will continue its core function as a wastewater treatment plant. The applicant anticipates no impact to nearby property values as the site use and thus the impact on neighboring properties will not change. Drainage. The post-project impervious area at the site is anticipated to be approximately equal to the existing impervious area at the site. And that's largely due to removing that one large 150-foot diameter tank and replacing it with smaller facilities. Furthermore, just to note for the board's information, the practice of collecting all stormwater on site rather than allowing it to flow off site will continue. So currently, all of the stormwater that collects on the site flows into existing stormwater management facilities at the site, flows into a pump station at the western edge of the site, and then is recirculated back to the influent at the plant. So flow does not go from the site to the creek that borders the property along the west. Sewage, the site is and will continue to be a wastewater treatment plant. The proposed improvements do not increase the flow capacity of the treatment plant. And lastly, odors. The proposed improvements are not anticipated to significantly change odor level. The village anticipates odor level will be equal to or better, i.e. less odor, after completion of these improvements. The septic receiving station, as required by the settlement, again, includes doors that will be closed prior to discharge of septic and includes odor scrubbing technology to prevent the release of odor. The path of septic after discharge from the truck is fully below grade, which ensures compliance. So it's discharged from the truck, goes through a screen, and then goes below grade into that tank right here. And then continues below grade to the influent of the facility. The exposed surface area of the trickling filter media will decrease once the existing trickling filter is replaced. So if there's concern about odor from trickling filter tank surface area, if anything, that would be better because that surface area is significantly being reduced. And lastly, the digester repairs, including concrete repair, recoating, replacing the digester flare, should improve digester operation and reduce any associated odor. So in summary, I appreciate the board's time. I won't belabor this, but I do appreciate the time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
With respect to the septic building, the receiving station, could you help me understand the service area for the village of Webster? Is it the entire village? Does it include, what is this service exactly?
Do you mean
Who are the customers? Help me understand the exact customer base.
Well, the customer base is not, for the septage, is not.
No,
built-
I'm asking it with respect to the septage itself.
Right. It's not the village, it's not residents of the
No,
village of Webster.
you're missing what I'm asking. Help me understand, number one, what does this plant service within the town, village of Webster? Just want to set a baseline.
It-
What goes here? Not the septage building, the facility in general.
Well, it serves the village of Webster with 5,000 some odd residents. of the
I'm
village.
trying to set a baseline. Can you help me out here? Thank you. Can you answer the question?
So the village as is serves the village residents, and then the septic receiving station would be open within limits to receive septic discharge from any of the 7 haulers. You know, a hauling company.
Okay, so let's go back to the first part. There's 5,000 residents within, or residencies within the village of Webster that this plant services, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's all through conveyance systems. How many of those 5,000 in the village of Webster are on septic, not sewer?
I do not know.
Are there any?
If there are any, maybe there's one
Okay.
household. Otherwise, everybody is connected to the sewer system.
Okay, so help me, okay, perfect, you answered that. Help me now understand the purpose of this facility to bring these 7 haulers in.
The purpose is to
If there are no customers in the village of Webster, right, that need septage, right, who's gonna be using this? Where's that coming from? I'm gonna assume somebody like Chamberlain is gonna come in. They may be out in Ontario, they may be out in the town of Webster, where there's no sewer service, collecting and bringing here. So it's not satisfying any village residents, correct?
I can't qualitatively, I can't firmly say 0 village residents, but I think you have the intent. I think your understanding is correct, generally the intent.
Okay. And in this treatment system, where is the number one area odor come from? The digesters?
It'd be-
In today's operation,
Right.
where does the majority of the odor come from?
It-
Digester?
My guess would either be the digester, of which there are 2, or one of the open air clarifier tanks, which contains wastewater undergoing treatment, but there's no roof or anything, so it's just open to the air.
Okay, so no odor is going to be coming from the treatment filter system, which you're replacing, per se, correct?
Correct. I don't believe, the treatment filters are covered, and I
Correct.
don't believe there's
So the odor today is really coming from the digesters and the clarifier, of which the improvements to the digester, I think you said included some upgrades, including a new flare.
Correct. Now, I'll qualify that by saying I haven't collected any odor measurements of the site, so I'm guessing that, I just want to be clear that I have data to back up.
So back to the septage building in receiving station, we'll call it. What is the driver, what's driving the village to want to construct this?
Well, it always, for many, many years, treated septage from various haulers in the area, and it simply wants to continue to offer that service. I would note that the town also accepts septage at its sewage treatment plant, which is also a pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential district, from more locations than simply the town of Webster septic plant.
Last question that I have, in terms of the truck traffic, you said there's about 5,800 roughly vehicles per day, of which 235 trucks. These trucks are, obviously, once again, I'll just reference Chamberlain because that's what I see around town, right? They're gonna be similar to that? Or are they gonna be bringing in large 18-wheeler style tanks?
No, they'd be similar to Chamberlain. Chamberlain would likely be one of the lead companies to use this facility.
And that access is Wall Road access? No, it will be 250.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I didn't hear you say.
Yeah.
No one uses the Wall Road access. It's all up to 250.
Because there's a gate on Wall Road.
And it's never open. It's sort of like emergency. And I would note that when the village agreed, the village used to also accept leachate, and that would come, leachate is, like from landfills, and that would come in large 18-wheel 10 trucks.
And that's part of this, what I'll call this agreement, was no leachate from 2018.
That's never gonna happen.
Right. Are those trucks limited on a daily basis? Like, can Chamberlain only go there once, or can they go there multiple times?
The design of the upgrades will allow for the acceptance of up to 20,000 gallons of septic per day maximum.
How many trucks is that? That's how many trucks.
Can you repeat? I couldn't hear.
The question was, can a truck go multiple times per day?
And my response is that the current basis of design for the project is to allow for the acceptance of up to a maximum of 20,000 gallons per day of septic.
And what's a single truck, as Mr. Brown?
I believe they're not full all the time, but I believe they're somewhere 2,000 or 3,000 gallon capacity per truck.
So it isn't, that's what I was looking seven, right, or they met, or they had 7 different haulers.
That's
So
10.
if I'm understanding this right, the major change here that might have an effect on the neighbors is the acceptance of this septic. And it's going to be approximately 7 trucks. I mean, the other improvements I don't think are, correct me if I'm wrong, the other improvements have nothing to do with it, or they do?
Yeah, there's only active odor control for the septic. The rest is, odor improvements might be a tangential benefit to general improvements of the facilities, but generally it's, construction of those 2 trickling filters is a DEC mandated improvement to go from 1 tank to 2. And rehabilitation of the digester, like I mentioned, with a new flare, we anticipate that'll have some benefits as far as odor reduction, but those are just safety and process-related improvements that are really needed due to the age and the condition of the digesters.
And I would also note that prior to settlement of the lawsuit with the neighbors, the village accepted septic simply, it was a pipe coming out of the ground next to the driveway, where the septic hauler would just pull up next to it and plug into it, totally out in the open.
Like an RV park?
Correct, similar, exactly, just like at an RV park. So this, I would suggest that the new facility is a vast improvement over the old way that the village accepted septic as far as odors are concerned.
Mr. Artuso, could you give the board a little bit of background on what this process looks like, start to finish? Meaning planning board engagement, town board engagement, what is that? And what will look like?
Upon receiving the application for the variance, the plans were provided to the PRC group. They were reviewed a couple different times. We did not bring this to the planning board yet. I'm we spoke with the planning board about the project, and they didn't feel that they would add any value because it's a pretty self-contained site. They really didn't have a desire to review this. So there hasn't been any need for engagement with the town board yet either. There's no special permits needed. All that's really required is this variance from the zoning board.
But again, it's not a variance. It's an extension of a non-conforming use.
With an impact.
Jeff, were there some comments though, of the PRC?
Yes, there were comments, and Mr. Higgins has provided responses to those comments. I can certainly read through some of them if you'd like.
Yeah, these are public property.
What's that?
Yeah, we don't public property.
Okay, so are there mechanical plans for the EQ tanks complete? Their response was yes. Is there an existing flare? Yes. The existing flare is located on the roof of the digester building. Is there a proposed new flare? If so, where will it be located? How many feet off the ground? The response is a flare is required for safety purposes to allow for the release and burning off of gas to prevent overpressurization of the anaerobic digesters. Due to the age of the existing flare, the proposed work includes replacing the existing flare with a new flare in approximately the same location as the existing. This location, which is on the roof of the digester building, is approximately 16.5 feet above the ground. When will burning of the flare take place? The response was the gas produced in the digester is normally burned in the boiler, which is being replaced due to its age, to produce hot water for the digester operation. The amount of gas produced is variable depending on the sludge content. Wastewater treatment plant operators estimate that the existing flare operates daily. We do not anticipate a significant change to flare operation, although we anticipate the efficiency of the anaerobic digesters will improve due to the proposed improvements. Is there a standby generator? If so, how often is it anticipated to be exercised? Is there any sound attenuation being proposed? The wastewater treatment plant has an existing standby generator located in the service building that provides power to the wastewater treatment plant in the event of a power outage and will remain as is. The existing standby generator was built in the 1970s and is limited to providing 230 volt power. The proposed work includes the installation of a new standby generator, 300 kilowatts, on a concrete pad and housed within a sound attenuating enclosure near the southwest corner of the wastewater treatment plant site to provide additional backup power at the modern 460 volt power supply. We anticipate the new generator will be exercised weekly for 1 hour and will only run continuously during power failures. Please note also that the proposed standby generator is being installed because there is not adequate space in the existing electrical panels. We anticipate the overall wastewater treatment plant power usage will be approximately the same after the project is completed. The next PRC comment was to add the 100-year floodplain boundary to the map to ensure that the proposed building is not in the floodplain. Labella has added that to the site plan, and the town has confirmed that its proposed location is outside of the floodplain.
Don, you indicated at the beginning some of the particulars of the settlement with respect to the lawsuit. Now, obviously, I don't have much detail about that at all, and I know all I needed, but that obviously would be potentially if there was a violation, a dispute between compliance with the settlement order between the village and those individuals that made up the class of plaintiffs that commenced the action. But obviously, the issues that I'm assuming all the folks are here for go above and beyond it, although the issues may be similar, certainly go beyond the limited amount of individuals that were plaintiffs in that action. So, understand that, and I don't know how many plaintiffs were in the settlement, or in the action itself. I know there was less than 5,000 of the residents of the village of Webster, right?
Rough count in the caption, 28 plaintiffs. None of them were village residents.
Okay. So I get the point I'm trying to make is this: are there, since this improvement has gone forward, are there other issues that have been brought to your attention, either yours or Matt or anybody on your team, that go beyond the criteria in the statute that says including but not limited to traffic, noise, odors? Can you tell me what the top 5 concerns have been, or are they all within those criteria that Matt went through?
I have not been privy directly to any concerns of the neighbors, if that's what you're asking. I don't think, you could ask Mike or Polycon would probably be the ones to ask. I don't know if they approached the village to talk about this or not, but they can answer that question.
I'd
But-
call Mr.
All
Byers.
right, well, wait, I just want to direct our communication to one another right now. So between
Since the settlement of the lawsuit, there have been, I think, one incident that Mrs. Khan had a concern about. I don't even remember what it was, but it really had nothing to do with operation of the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, so since the applicants moved forward with the implementation of the improvements, let's say in the last 6 or 9 months, Matt or yourself or anyone on your team, so to speak, you haven't been inundated with questions or concerns from folks in close proximity to the
I have not been, of course, I've talked to Josh and received, responded to the PRC comments, but I'm not aware that the village has been flooded with comments, and I have not been personally. I don't think my contact information is very available to town residents.
Other than engineering work, there has been no construction work at the site. We need this board's approval first, and then a building permit. But so, everything, if you drive by there today, and everything looks as it's always been.
And Josh, we've received, outside of the folks that are here this evening, was it 1 or 2 comments?
Yeah, we received 2 comments online, a couple phone calls in the past week, a couple walk-ins.
Josh, has there been any comments from Monroe County?
No, there has not.
We haven't received them yet?
Correct.
All the people I read in the application, I think, and it did give us kind of a brief synopsis of the settlement between the neighbors. And I think the 2 major issues were odor and traffic. Did I, folks, see the same thing I did?
Yeah.
So maybe they can address those. Well, they have addressed some.
They have addressed them,
yeah.
Some insurance per day, and they anticipate no increase in odor of this operation.
why don't we go forward here from the residents and then we'll go after the bed.
Well, I had a question. How are we going to continue fan operations when you're going to be dismantling the existing treatment tank? Are you going to install one tank and hopefully have that little tank take care of everything and meet all the requirements until the second tank is constructed?
Yes, so it will be phased, exactly. So if I could show you,
Please do.
this tank will be constructed first, adjacent to the existing tank, while the existing tank remains online. Then this new tank, when it's done being built, will be started up and become operational. And then the existing tank here will be demolished. So during that period, this new little tank will be operational, handling all flow. And then the second smaller tank will be built within the footprint of the existing. So it will be phased.
Is that single tank going to be able to handle
Yes,
the operation?
yes.
Now, to that point, is the volume of material process gone down recently? I mean, Xerox is a fraction of the company it used to be in the village, handled all of their effluent from their, is the volume actually lower now than it was, say, 10 years ago?
I don't know. I haven't seen data that far back. I would guess yes, just like you're doing, but
Well, if you want, John Carnavale, who's the plant operator, is sitting in the room. He could answer that directly, but I don't believe the flow has decreased significantly at all. Xerox still does have some operations that apparently generate a lot of wastewater. Because their quarterly bill from the village is substantial. So the flows have not changed materially in the last 10 years.
Okay. Any other questions at this point? All right, we're going to open this up to public comment, and I understand there's several of you in the room. Is there a spokesperson for the group? Here's what we want to avoid. We want to be succinct in the comments. We want to state facts. We don't want emotions to play into this, certainly. But, you know, if it's the same comment over and over, if it's older, we understand that, okay? So as we start to get through these, if we get a lot of repetition, please just be cognizant that we understand, and it's probably representative of other folks in the room.
Will you speak?
Yep. You can state your name and address.
My name is Michael Kahn. I live at 610 Webster Road, which is directly across the street. That would be the west of it. I live to the east, directly across the street from the village sewage plant. We moved in 1982. I knew it was a sewage treatment plant. We were there many years without any problems. The problem started, 6 or 8 years ago with this current village board, current management from the plant. And around 2017, they were doing tons and tons of human sewage composting. Many complaints from the neighbors to DEC. In my opinion, in DEC's comments, they would overload the composting. They would put all the treated sewage on the leaves rather than use a formula. It got so unbearable. They would take septic trucks day after day and line them up. Like the attorney said, they would just dump them in a hole.
Excuse me, sir, did you know what year is this?
It was around 2016, 17,
So it's
2015.
prior to the settlement?
Yeah, just before the lawsuit. This is what triggered the lawsuit. Okay? Leachate trucks. Those are tractor trailer trucks which haul liquid from landfills. They would come one after another, a couple a week, couple a day. One day I followed one and I gave up almost in Syracuse. It was coming from Syracuse area. The neighbors complained to the village, to the DEC, wrote letters, called, I went on TV. We showed up at the village board meeting with 50 people. Made a petition, almost 400 signatures on it. Please stop this behavior. The village did nothing. We got together, 28 families or people, and went through the long process of hiring Farashi Lane and legally taking the court. We did settle. We wanted to go to trial. Our attorney had an expert on sewage treatment plant. He was ready to bring it in from California. He said this plant was a joke. Anyways, when Don White says Donovan Street, that's the place that the village will build a building and dump our septic trucks. Everybody said, hey, that's great, let me sign, we're done. We won. Well, village sewage plant was built in the 30s. What grandfather did, he says. Well, the grandfathers that built the sewage treatment plant, they were smart enough to put it out in the cornfields and a couple miles from the village, so the village people didn't have to deal with it. And it went for years and years, and everybody was happy. Well, now, there's thousands of homes around that village sewage treatment plant. And Don, he even admitted, there's no septic haulers or no septic tanks in the village. This is for village revenue. Chamberlain, Barefoot, some of these guys I talked to said the village will undercut anybody for price. That's why the village gets so many septic haulers. Some days, 10, 15 septic haulers were lining up to dump the sewage in this open pit. And the village did nothing. They waited until they rode us through court, and then they offered us a deal. These septic trucks that line up at the village, this is before the settlement. I'm going back to the history of the plant.
Yeah, I just want to clarify once again, there's been no trucks since the
No
settlement.
septic haulers that I've seen since the settlement, yes. These septic haulers that came to the village plant would dump their concentrated sewage. The trucks are 5,000 gallons or so. So that's a lot of waste. This would go into the village plant that was built in the 30s. In my opinion, look at some pictures, poorly maintained. Obsolete, drying beds with broken windows. You see that? You see the loader there? That's the way they bring the sewage sludge, what's left over from the drying beds, up to the composting beds. We put it in an open loader and drive it up the hill. And the day I took that picture was a rainy day, and it was stunk so bad. Anyways, once all this stuff goes down the village plant, see, the village does not have a speedies permit. They have very little inspection from DEC. The town of Webster, on their plant on Phillips Road, they hold the speedies permit. That's DEC's permission to discharge into the lake. So anything that goes through the village plant on Route 250 whether it's treated or not, goes to the town plant. And many times I heard from town plant people that when multiple trucks discharge into the village plant, they can't keep up with it, and it heads downstream to the town plant and causes problems down there. If the village,
I'm
sorry.
clarification on that. Is that accurate? That's accurate. There's only one Speedy's outfall out, like on there.
That is correct.
That's a combination of, so it's a single Speedy's outfall.
Presently, yes, there's one Speedy's permit that the town holds, and the village is a significant other user permitted through the town. However, as Matt mentioned, part of this project is the village is going to obtain its own Speedy's permit from the DEC. It's going to be, except for the outfall, the pipe that goes, that's still going to be shared between the town and the village. They're totally separate systems. So whatever gets dumped, and it was never dumped into a pit, as Mr. Khan said, but whatever septage gets treated, it'll have no effect on the town plant because it's totally separate. The town will be doing absolutely zero treatment of any village influent comes out of its effluent. So that will not, even if it ever was an issue, it can't be an issue in the future because of the two separate speeds permits.
okay. If the village builds this building, bringing a septic haulers, it can no longer be called the village sewer plant. It's the industrial park for your sewage trucks and your sewage waste. I don't know how far Chamberlain and everybody else goes to bring their sewage to the village, but they're gonna be bringing it in from a long ways. He says that the lawsuit limits them to 7. The management of the plant, in my opinion, has very little regard for the neighborhood. It's a self-interest, a lot of neglect. The buildings are old. Look at the fence that goes around it. It's an eyesore. If you want to talk about grandfathering in a clause, Xerox has a 3.5-acre hazardous waste dump. I was part of the Federal Register for hazardous waste dumps. Now, does that mean we'll let Xerox go back in and take in hazardous chemicals? My 5 acres across the street used to be a turkey farm, Dash's Donuts and ice cream. Does that mean I can go back to retail or maybe a pig farm? I don't even cut the grass too early because I don't want to bother neighbors. And that's not the way some of my neighbors act. The zoning laws, I don't know if he needs a zoning variance for this, sounds like something else. But anyways, zoning boards are here to protect people from property owners who don't care. The village has tried and got away with a lot of stuff over there on 250. DEC rarely goes over there. There's other ways to handle this, the septage or the sewage, or the concentrated sewage haulers, like they've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years. This permission to let these people build this building and renovate their property is just gonna make things worse over there.
So are you against all upgrades to this facility?
I've been for upgrading since '82. I would love to see them fix the place up, but they don't.
Part of this is they're upgrading the facility, so are you against that?
No, not at all. I think if they got their own Speedy's permit, then they're gonna have to play fair. They're gonna have to play like the rest of the sewage treatment plants in the country. You know, when Van Leer lets the sewage sludge that's treated come out of their plant, they have to treat it like a hazardous waste. The village puts it in a dump truck. Sometimes it's raining on it. Sometimes the truck breaks down and they drive it into their evaporation buildings. That's the greenhouse with all the broken windows, or the other woodshed over there with the doors that don't close. I mean, the people over on the other side of the plant will tell you that building's full of sludge. According to the lawsuit, they were supposed to put that in a sealed container and take it to the landfill. And that doesn't happen all the time. We've got documentation from DEC after we call them and bug them, come over here and check this out, it stinks. They come down and they catch the truck in the drying beds, and he said, well, it broke down. As far as other things that happened at this plant, it wasn't 3 or 4 months after the settlement. All of a sudden, they got 10-wheelers over there on this huge asphalt pad that used to be for the composting. They got a pile the size of my garage of crushed and pulverized stone. They got a tractor trailer truck tanker with hot tar, and they're doing staging for fixing the roads up in the village. We called DEC. They said they can't do that. That's a sewage treatment plant. They can't do it. Within 2 days, DEC came down there and put an end to it. But this is the kind of behavior, this is the kind of history that we have to put up with from who's ever running the plant over there, or who's ever calling the chef. My wife tries to call the village, and they don't return calls. I just told you, we were there with 50 people in a petition to try to get them to stop dumping, not a pit, it's a pipe, he says, it's just a pipe. You could stand in my yard, when the truck's unloaded, it smells so bad, 10, 20 minutes go by, they're all done, the wind blows it down the street, and it's okay until the next truck backs in there.
Okay, sir, so are you the spokesperson for everybody, or are there more people that want to speak? Okay. We've got a lot of people. Can I just summarize what I think I heard you say?
Okay.
Lots of issues leading up to 2016 and 2018. Apparently, those issues have been resolved. There's no trucks that are coming in there and dumping, open dumping is not occurring anymore. You're in favor of the upgrades to that are being proposed, because this facility needs upgrades, correct?
Yes.
And you're in favor that they're gonna get their own individual speedies permit?
Yes.
Okay. Can we, once again, we've gotta get this moving, please. If we can get the next person up, thank you.
Brian Dunham, I live at 623 Webster Road. I live directly north of the water treatment plant on the same side of the street.
Could you just state when you moved in, sir?
1993.
93?
I've been there 29 years. So, just for a little history, I've lived there 29 years. I haven't, besides the first year that we moved in, we never had an issue with the treatment plant, just besides the first year. After that, for like the last, for the next 15, 20 years, everything, we never had an issue with the smell. It would smell maybe twice, we could smell like twice a year at the time. Right? But then all of a sudden they stopped the way they were doing the treatment. They were bringing in the septic haulers and bringing in the leaf launcher. Right? So everything changed then. And so the last 4 years, since the lawsuit, they stopped doing that stuff, right? Bringing in with the traffic, with the septic haulers, and everything's been good again. So, my issue, I don't mind an upgrade to the facility. I do not want the septic haulers to come back. I don't care if it's in a building or not. Because one thing, I don't think there's any guarantee that the building's gonna stop smell from getting out. The other thing is, I built a new barn on my property, 10 years back maybe, and one of
the stipulations I had from the zoning board was I could not use my building as a business, right? And the sewer treatment plant is a service for the village sewer. And if they're allowed to bring in the trucks, they're using it as a business. And I'm not allowed to do that. And it's unnecessary because them trucks can go someplace else. They don't have to go to the village. I mean, to the village plant. So I really object to that. Also, on these plans, I don't see anything about how tall these buildings are going to be, the treatment stations or the proposed building, how the height of them. They don't have that on the plan, and I think that would make a difference. But I don't want to see these trucks come back, and I don't want to see that building built.
But you're in favor of the upgrades they're planning?
Yeah, I think they can use upgrades, yes.
So then the trucks,
Yeah.
your objection with respect to the trucks specifically, is it noise, is it odor, is it all the above?
It's all the above. And it's a lot of it, so I'm directly next to the plant. And if I can show you the picture, I can show you what it looks like out my back window when these trucks come by,
Let me ask you this, what has changed since there's been a lack of trucks?
What has changed?
Yeah.
It's, the trucks are like a nuisance, you know? The noise when they go by, well, the smell, it's just it's a poor quality to the neighborhood, you know, having these trucks here.
And
No.
did you agree with the applicant when he indicated approximately 7 trucks a day? Does that sound right to you?
So I don't know, I mean, I don't know if they took the volume of the trucks they had in a year and just divided it by, 360, and they came up with 7. But it's not, I mean, I don't know how they're really gonna do it. Are they only really gonna take 7 trucks?
Well, I'm saying, historically, what's your observation?
Oh, there was trucks constantly. I can show you some pictures where there's
No,
stacked up.
just tell us so that the record's clear. You talk about 20, 30 trucks a day, what do you
Well,
think?
so, I work also, right?
Sure.
So, but just the time, so I work from 6 to 2:30. So I get home at 2:30. I mean, there's just multiple trucks that came by.
More than 7?
Yes, I can, like I said, I got pictures up here showing 3 of them lined up. I got pictures of big tankers. So,
And that's Monday through Friday, during
Yes.
business hours?
yeah,
You also mentioned, you said the trucks could go someplace else.
yeah, like the accountant treatment plant, or Van Leer in Arundecoy. I mean, it's just unnecessary. I guess in this, 88 years ago, this wasn't, our area wasn't a populated area. It is now. Things have changed, it's a neighborhood.
So
And
you're,
the town plan is not a neighborhood, the town plan is still rural, So it's just, it doesn't make sense to have that kind of business.
so you're okay with the upgrade, but you'd like to not have it allowed to be
The septic,
the private.
the septic hauler and the building, and then the change, yes, the addition of more buildings on the property bothers me also, right? So if the truck, the septic hauler building wasn't there, they're tearing down the one big thing and putting up 2 other ones. I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
So I have no problem with it being a sewer treatment plant, but just the other stuff and trying to use it as a business, it's not right in our neighborhood.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
Hi, my name's Jared. I live at 616 Webster Road. I live directly across the street. just up from
Sorry, can
Mike
you say
and
your
Polly.
name again?
Jared Garrett.
What's your address?
Pardon me?
Address?
616 Webster Road. I live directly across from the entrance. Directly across from the entrance. So a couple of questions I have, and I'll go back to the engineer.
Sorry to interrupt you again. When did you move in? Just trying to get-
About 8 years ago,
8 years.
roughly.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions for the engineer, I guess would be you. So the scrubber system that you mentioned that you have on the system for the trucks that would be coming in,
Mr. Garrett, what we'd like to do to keep it somewhat under control, let the state, what the questions are, let the applicants come up afterwards and answer those
okay,
questions.
my question is that designed just for smells? Or is it a CO? Because my question is this, if the system is designed where the truck drives in and the doors are closed, well, that truck has to remain running the entire time it's pumping. It can't offload by gravity. Centrifugal pump. So it has to be running. So you're going to have a carbon monoxide issue in that building. So my question is, how are you going to guarantee that the doors remain closed? Because I want to know what air intake systems are bringing in, what's the air exchange rate on the building, what system you have. Is it a mechanical scrubber to just is it a carbon filter? Is it just going to be for odor? Or how are you going to get rid of the carbon, the CO issues? One, to protect the driver that's in there, and two, the plant operators. Because if you can't do that, the door's going to come open, and your problem comes back.
Yeah, no answer to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you get the answer.
Secondly, I have worked closely with the police department on 250 because of the speed there. I don't think anybody that's ever driven that road would disagree that there's a problem with speed. I've had that problem for about 8 years. Fireman myself. So every time there's a wreck at that intersection, I start there first. I've worked a number of wrecks, from the elderly to pulling children out of cars there. Where that intersection continues to get worse. Police department's doing everything they can. With increased trucks, it's going to get worse.
Are you talking Clem or are you talking?
250 and Clem, that intersection. Right. So with additional trucks, I know it's going to get worse. And I don't think we've satisfied the question about, you said 7 trucks. Is that 7 that's going to be allowed to come once a day? Or is that 7 that can run as many times as they can to satisfy the 20,000 gallons? Because that's different. The lawsuit said 7. I wasn't part of that. I'm excusing myself from that. But what was said was 7. Who's going to maintain and quantify that only 7 trucks show up?
See, I think there's some confusion here, at least in my opinion, with respect to this lawsuit. There's no municipal, the village was a municipal party with private citizens, right? And if the municipality, the village, acts contrary to the settlement, then the citizens who are part of the lawsuit would have to have some type of enforcement action to enforce whatever it was you all agreed to.
I wasn't part of that. So
No, I'm just
right
saying.
or wrong, I wasn't part
Right,
of it.
generally speaking. But I don't believe it is incumbent on this board, although it may be a relevant question, traffic certainly is part of the criteria we should look at.
It has to be part of the criteria.
But in terms of setting a minimum or maximum number within a certain period in order to comply with a private settlement is not our requirement.
Understood.
Okay.
Somebody's got to do some traffic survey to be able to manage to say, this is the number of trucks that's going to be allowed to come there. Quite frankly, I don't know why they're even allowed to come there. It doesn't support the village, right, unless it's going to be some revenue generator, at which point it doesn't benefit any of us, it doesn't benefit along that road. My son's bus has been passed twice with the red lights going. Both times he was exiting the bus and the bus driver had to grab him and stop him. That's the traffic problem that's on that road right now. There's videos of it, I'm working with the city police. There's already a problem on that road. Up until last year, there wasn't a child.
Can I ask, due to traffic associated with the treatment plant?
No, the drug overdose was associated there because they used that facility. Somebody pulled in and parked and overdosed. right? Because the gate's left open. Pull over parked, overdose. I'm standing in my yard, Brian, I think you had to come over.
Yeah,
Two
I
of
gave
us
the
had
guy
to-
CPR.
Yeah, 2 of us had to respond.
Okay.
So,
Anything
but
else
to get
you-
back to the traffic
Let's
piece
get
of
back to
that,
this piece of it.
the traffic piece of it, I want assurance that the number of trucks aren't gonna continue to grow up and to go up. And how are we gonna maintain that? Who's watching that? Because there's already varying times for busing down through there, and it's a nightmare.
We heard it, and they're gonna answer that question. We'll come back to that at the end.
And the last question is, why are we, I'm okay, just for clarity, I am 100% okay with upgrading that facility. Because my background is occupational health and safety from environmental standpoint. I'm okay with the upgrade. I'm just not understanding why all of a sudden we're going to add a second bolt-on piece to this thing to take something that has no benefit other than a financial reward. Unless somebody has some other explanation of why is it coming? What's the reason we're doing the second half? I haven't heard that piece here tonight. What's the second piece of this? Is there a financial reward to the village, the residents? What piece is it? There's got to be some tangible cost piece of that.
Yep, and I was gonna ask that myself, so perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Hello, I'm Richard Frazier. I live right at the intersection of Webster and Wall, so I can walk down and see the vehicles coming down Wall Road. Okay, there's been no,
What's your address?
what's that?
Address?
592 Webster Road. My driveway is right across from Wall Road, so I get all the traffic. And no one said anything about this chain link fence that's there. If they put this up, it's going to devalue my home. There's been nothing about a wall, nothing about more trees planted. I can't sit on my porch and look and enjoy it because I can look directly at this and see this. How come there's been nothing about what they're going to do for people with properties like myself so we don't get devalued with everything there, plus the traffic? And why don't they come in from Wall Road? I can walk down Wall Road. It's terrible when I walk down there to look and see by the creek over there. There's been nothing said about that at all on this, protecting the values of the homes and people that live there.
What about the upgrades to the actual facility itself? How do you feel about those?
Am I for the upgrades? No.
None of them?
No, none of them.
You prefer that it operates as it is
I
today?
prefer it operates as it is, and I prefer that if they're gonna keep it, do something with that fence and the trees. It's terrible to look at it from my home and the other homes. It devalues our home. Why can't they put up walls? Why can't they put up something there so it can't be seen from the road?
Have you expressed these concerns to the village?
What's that?
Have you expressed these concerns to the village? Have you expressed these concerns?
No,
to
I
the
haven't.
village?
Should I want to sell my home? In a year, you can look right across there and see it. It doesn't look good.
So the only upgrades you're in favor of is the fence,
Right.
but they're not here for that.
Thank you.
Oh, next, please.
Hi, I'm Robert Fries, 1176 Wall Road. And I moved in there in 2013.
Yes, Mr.
So, just briefly, I don't agree with the wisdom of increasing that operation beyond what the village needs. So I'm not in favor of the septic receiving building. All in favor of the upgrades? That's good. I do have a question for Labella or whoever. I don't know what those buildings are that are down the hill from the plant along Mill Creek. There's a lot of busted windows and broken roofs there. I don't know if they're part of the sewage facility. And if they are they going to be repaired also?
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next, please. So I think we've got a lot of comments around general appearance that they want to address. And look, there's probably going to be a handful of people more. We may want to collect all this, collect your thoughts, and get together some kind of document. Consider as a board whether or not it makes sense to move forward with this tonight, or how do you address these general comments, okay? Probably gonna be more likely to lie.
My name is Patrick McDonald. I actually live at 467 Holt Road in Webster, which is right around the corner from here. I met my wife, I was a junior in high school, so I've spent many years in and out of this home over the years, practically grew up there. And we were pretty involved in this whole lawsuit. One thing, you know, obviously everybody's complaining about the way that it looks. But when we were getting involved in this lawsuit, what nobody's mentioning is the fact that this place has basically become a landfill. I mean, there's storage grills, the buildings are falling apart. However, when this was 4 years ago, and we were going through numbers that were provided to us by the village and by the village board, this place was over $5 million in disrepair on their current facility 4 years ago. And that's one of the reasons why we're having the odors, having to deal with lawsuits and lawyers in court to make things get done. And the last time any of us were talking publicly, either at the village, we're being told by them, we don't have to listen to you, you don't elect us, you don't pay taxes in the village. We come to the town told us on numerous occasions, there's nothing we can do for you, hire a lawyer. We did that. We had this upheld, and for the last 4 years, it's actually been a decent place to live. And now, because somebody's pockets are going dry, we're actually sitting here listening to the possibility that somebody's going to give them their golden ticket to fleece another municipality. I mean, track record just shows between the fire departments, the water authorities, and now this plant, they milk them until they go dry. And when they can't, they try to find something else to milk. And now this plant is not a money generator anymore because they can't bring the contaminated materials in from Xerox that they were poisoning the ground with, which is why they were shut down. The only reason they were able to get away with that was because they were piggybacking off of the Speedies permit through the town. Because of intermunicipal agreements, they were allowed to continue doing it for whatever reason. And I know since all the upgrades at the town sewer treatment plant, originally they were trying to get the village to tie in. The village refused to become a part of that program. I also can say, because we were told by direct employees and people that are supervisors in the town and people that are higher up, that the town and the taxpayers of the town have had to incur fines from the DEC and the bodies that govern these plants because the overflow from their plant goes down the line, kills all the bacteria, they happen to come for an inspection. Next thing you know, the town taxpayers are paying a $75,000 fine for one occurrence. So, as far as I know, they never told us that we were reimbursed from the village for that. So, I mean, before they even get the opportunity to have this facility, they've already cost the town and the taxpayers money. Not to mention the potential for all the inconvenience that we fought for a year to make go away. It was a lot of aggravation. It was a lot of time spent going to meetings, dealing with lawyers, going to court. And it only went away without going to trial for one very good reason. They didn't want to see their employees face charges. I mean, it wasn't because they were being nice people, that's what it was coming down to. And call a spade, you know? We don't want to see it again. And now that we actually are on our own turf, we hope that the board sees fit to do the right thing by their constituents now, because now we actually have the power to look at them and say, you pay zero taxes in the town of Webster because you're a municipality. You know, you have your plant and you don't elect us. And it'd be nice to see it go the other way.
So, can you just summarize your key points? Are you in favor of the upgrades to the facility with the exception of the septic receiving?
Well, I think that's another thing that hasn't really been clarified. I mean, everybody in this room would love to see upgrades for the $5+ million that they're in disrepair. I don't think anybody really wants to see upgrades that goes towards these tankers right there.
We don't know what that I can't verify or validate anything you're saying.
All
I want to know is, are you in favor of the proposed updates to the digester, clarifier, and the 2 new trickling filters?
I would be in favor of anything that prevents future problems for the current setup, but
Understood.
not to facilitate a future business endeavor.
Gotcha. Got it. Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, I'm Polly Khan, 610 Webster Road. I live across the street from the sewer treatment plant. We moved here in 1982, and our home was built in 1850.
Can I just, was it your husband that was called Rose? I just, okay.
The best one, sure.
My husband has built my house, yes. Lots of additions, but we've made it. So, but we moved to Webster because in 1982, there was horse farms on the corner of Clem Road and Route 250. We had 4 beautiful girls. They all live in Webster now with 13 grandchildren. And I have to say that I really love Webster. We have a great police department. Everything is going great. And in 2018, when we had the lawsuit, it was settled, and it's been very happy without the septic hollers. I have a picture where you can see right out of my front window where the septic hollers pulls right out of the plant, and you can hear the rah, rah, rah. When they're pulling in, you can hear them downshifting and going into the plant. It's been very peaceful with them gone. We have had a few complaints. I have called the village. I left a message for Mr. Virus to please call me. He hasn't returned my call. I called Ron Nesbitt when I was having problems, and he says, I can't do anything for you. And the lawsuit is all over, and I don't think the village wants to talk to you. And I said, okay. So we dealt with DEC.
Can you help me understand this, I guess it was the 2018 settlement, we'll call it, right? The plaintiff, can you hear me?
What'd you say?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, can you help me understand in 2018 as part of this settlement, I believe I heard earlier that the plaintiffs in that agreed to a future septic receiving station? Is that an accurate statement?
Well, of course, at the lawsuit, when we talked about the lawsuit, they said they were going to put it on Donovan Street, and everybody cheered. We thought, wow, there's hope for it to be on
So
Donovan
does the
Street.
settlement actually specifically state Donovan Street?
No.
No.
So, okay, I'll finish telling you the remainder of the story. In August of 2021, I called DEC on a Sunday morning. There was disgusting smell outside, and Tom Snowy from DEC police came down. And he said that he went over and he found John at the plant. And he found sludge in the greenhouse, and that's where the smell, the disgusting smell was coming from. John was working on a Sunday over there.
What year?
This was August of 2021. It was August the 8th, it was on a Sunday. And John was at the plant working on a Sunday, and those are not his hours to be working. And it was also documented by Tara Blum. On 8/12, she called me and said DEC had filed a report in their office that the DEC police was over there. Then on October the 1st of 2018, I made a complaint, a formal complaint to DEC. I called them to tell them that they were doing staging across the street. They had large trucks, 18-wheelers. The flames were 3 feet high. And I explained to her that we live in this beautiful residential neighborhood with 4,000 homes that surround it. The dust was unbelievable, the way they were doing their staging. And
Can I ask, is this prior to the settlement or after?
after.
This instance was after the settlement? They were
Yes,
still
after the
receiving
settlement. Yes, after the
septic
settlement, yes.
No.
trucks?
No, it wasn't a septic place. staging.
This was October the 1st of 2018.
So is this
After
what,
the lawsuit.
Oh, the highway work.
that's what I was gonna say, is this what your husband referenced earlier
Oh,
with the
yes,
stone and the stadium?
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
So,
Those are two complaints, and I did call the village for Mr. Byrat's, especially with the staging, and he never returned my
so just so I'm clear, that there's only been 2 instances since 2018 that you've waged complaints. One was a one-off thing because they were doing some work, some road work, and they were staging equipment. And the other one was truly related to the operation of the plant.
Yes.
Oh.
There has been smell on Wall Road. We smell things once in a while, but not too much. But on Wall Road, it has been smelling, and I've talked to the neighbors over there, and the smell, it seems like it's coming from maybe the sludge building on Wall Road. It's a terrible smell by the creek. And there's a few neighbors that are here tonight can tell you about the smells. But bottom line, it's a waste of my time to call the village because they don't want to talk to me, and there's nothing I can do. They can do whatever they want over there. It's like an industrial plant. They've been bringing the village snow in the wintertime. It's not here yet, but they have a concrete pad in front of my house. It's like 100 feet from my front room window. And at nighttime, they bring the snow in. They bring it in the morning. They bring it right out of the village and bang those gates. And sometimes if I'm in the office in the front of the house, you can hear the windows. So why is the village bringing all this snow down, piled this high, and it takes all spring for it to melt? I mean, it's a very nuisance noise. And this is where I live. And to complain to the village, I can't. Sorry.
Anything else related to the operation of the treatment plant specifically and what they're proposing in the upgrades? Are you for or against the upgrades to the clarifier, the trickling filter? Are you
Yes.
in favor of those upgrades?
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, I'm not in favor
not-
of these septic collars. They're just
Okay.
making money for the village because
Okay,
they want money.
got it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you. Once again, it seems there's a pretty consistent theme here, right? Everybody's in favor of the upgrades to the plant. I think they would like beautification. I know, we're gonna get there.
I'm against it.
Okay, I think they want beautification of the remaining property, right, the fence and some of the other aspects of it.
Hi. Thanks for being here. I mean, we got weeks before Christmas and it's cold and everybody wants to be home with their family, so I just want to say thank you.
Well, we get paid a ton of money, that's why.
That's the kindness of your heart.
Check the town records.
Yes.
We don't.
Well, I just want to say thank you, and I will make this brief. I had this, look at this nice little summary of my life, and I have spent over 30 years on Webster Road, 610, and now I have an interest because my children spend more time there than me. They are babysat by my wonderful parents, and it did get better. The lawsuit helped, it got the village to listen, and they told the residents what we wanted to hear. Yes, you're going to move it, and we're not going to have all these septic collars, and we're going to get rid of this leachate that we didn't realize was such a problem. But we've got evidence that they were doing things wrong, and now they say we're doing it right. We're going to do it right this time. How do you earn our trust back? You were already doing it wrong, and Don, I love when you said it was just an odor. I mean, you had a lawsuit for an odor. Well, an odor that you just said, it stinks because they're just dumping it in a hole, but this garage door will help. So right there, you just admitted that the odor is so bad that we have to frame in these trucks so that it helps the residents. My kids, I love that they have 5 acres at my parents' house, right across the street from the village treatment plant. And they don't want to go to summer camps. They want to go play at Nana and Papa's house and, on a zip line. But if you bring back these septic haulers, 7, 8 they want, they're filled. Let's just be honest. They're not going to have one household in a truck and drive across the cities to get there. And when you ask Don, how many people in the village are on septic, We couldn't quantify that. Maybe one house. So again, you know, Mr. Dunn was right. This has become an industrial park. And it's no longer meant to help the village to get rid of their waste, their human sewage, their excrement, or what have you. The town knows what they're doing. I mean, I would love for you guys to meet with the village and show them how you're doing it. Because I have friends right down on Phillips Road, and I said, do you smell the sewage? Because we used to smell it all the time on Webster Road. No, they just half the time we don't even know it's there. So again, I just want to say thank you for being here. I think that this whole Birdie, we're going to do upgrades, right? We don't know how to answer it. Half of us are saying no upgrades. We know what that means. They want to spend millions of dollars on a new building for what? Because they're the do-gooders. We're not here to make a profit, right? That's what you said, Don. This is not to make a profit. We want to help other towns and other cities who come here, and we'll fix it for them. No. I don't buy it. They're there to make a profit. It's always about job security. I'm not buying this. Look over here, upgrades, guys. Get on board. Because once we all say, yes, we do want those upgrades, they're going to throw something else in, just like the lawsuit. Look, we're going to go to Donovan Street. We're going to get away from all of these neighborhoods, and you're not going to see kids out here. My husband's putting my kids to bed tonight, just like all of these kids, grandkids. You don't see the effects. We town members, we pay the price, right? They get the benefit, they get the profit. I don't want the profit. Don't even give me part of the profit. We didn't want the lawsuit. We had to do the lawsuit to get their attention. So that's what's just so heartbreaking about it, is they're not smelling the poop. And I don't blame them. Build it, however many years ago they put out farm fields, and I know it's not about just the smell, it's about the traffic, and it's about the quality of life. They're ruining our quality of life for our children. We're leaving this world to our kids. I want my kids to grow up in the town of Webster and love it as much as I do. And they're ruining it for them. They're going to grow up with memories of smelling sewage and wafting and noises, and it's no longer doing what it was meant to do.
So are you, once again, I keep asking the same question. If we could all just answer the same question, this would be a lot quicker.
Am I for it?
Are you for parts of the upgrades, none of the upgrades?
Show of hands. Is there people who don't know how to answer the question?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, they're telling you what you want to hear. They're really great at
You're
it.
not answering my question.
Yeah, the basic part of the question that I think
The
Mr.
same
Newtown's
thing
been
is
asking
coming
everybody
back.
is, are you for the upgrades but against the trucks coming in and dumping?
Of course. Who wouldn't be?
This
for
is
it?
not going to go away.
I
right?
know.
If this board denies
We
this.
trust you though, right?
Let me help you understand. If this board denies this use, the extension of pre-existing use, this will continue to operate as it is. I don't know what they're going to do. We're the town. I have no idea what they will do, right? They'll probably continue to operate it until the last day that they can, right? Until the equipment becomes irrelevant, right? So my question is, to your point, you want a better Webster, right? What are you in favor of or not in favor of with respect to this plan? Because this will, if we do not act on that, or if we deny this, this is going to continue to operate as is. As is. Right? Okay? So then I need you to come up here and state this. It's 9 o'clock this evening. I want to get through this. I want to hear everybody's points, but it's pretty simple. We need to know a few things. Could you state your point?
Yeah, Kansas, can you get everyone?
Are you?
Just want to clarify. My name is Kansas McDonald, and that's when I spoke. I live on Hope Road. We're okay with upgrades, but it has not encompassed the underlying problems of dilapidated buildings and mismanagement.
So not these upgrades, different upgrades.
This upgrade, we should not be talking about these upgrades. It's like building an addition on a hoarder house. First you have to clean up your house, then we'll entertain your addition. Or tell us how the addition incorporates cleaning up your house. I think that's what most of the people are kind of stuck on. The upgrades do not fix the fence, the dilapidated buildings, the the highway department usage, the snow bringing in, it doesn't encompass these problems. So
That's true.
this little bit of, guys, we're gonna do an upgrade, does not fix the better picture.
So
Is that
show
about
of
right?
hands of who agrees with what Kansas is saying.
Does anybody agree with what I'm saying, that it doesn't fix the property? You're talking about something very, very specific. So I am against these upgrades.
So you're more concerned about the property in the looks and appeal of the property itself as opposed to upgrades to the mechanical systems associated with.
And not increasing the current
We
services.
understand no one's in favor of the septic, right? I
These
understand.
upgrades have not been proven to be needed in order to keep the facility operational. Nothing was discussed. We heard a lot of words like likely. We have heard words like reasonable. The village does not understand those words, okay? So unless you.
So you
put it
want
on-
proof of end of useful life, that this equipment, to
That it has
answer
to
some of
be
these
used.
things, they want to hear more, some proof of this equipment today as it exists, the clarifiers, the trickling filters are at end of useful life, and if they're not repaired, X, Y, and Z might happen. I think we need to get that all together. Not, once again, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
And the overall appearance and management of the property.
Okay.
Nobody there on a Sunday morning or on a Saturday night, or flames 3 feet high coming off the fire staff. This is management and these are problems. Right now, the village is not accountable for these items. The town says we can't stop it and the village doesn't answer phone calls. We call DEC, but they don't have the speedies permit. The only one that they can go and find are the town of Webster. They can't go down and stop the village. The village is unaccountable for the way they run the facility.
So, once again, you're in favor of the mechanical system upgrades, provided that there's some proof that the existing equipment is at end of useful life and it's needed for these reasons. And you want to hear more about upgrades in management of the facility to have a greater look and feel for the town of Webster.
And the property in
That's what I
Dutchess,
want.
absolutely right.
Okay, thank
And
you.
not say
Holes in
yes
the
to
roof.
this specific item.
Gotcha. Next, please, once again, I want to make it very clear. We are not going to come to a resolution this evening. We're going to work with the applicant to have them put together a prepared response to address the multitude of comments and questions that have come.
Sure, and I respect that my job here is to add anything in addition,
Yes,
not
perfect.
repetitive
Thank
of
you.
what we've already heard.
Awesome.
So my name is Katie Borchers, I live at 257 Circle Lane in Webster. I own a business that operates out of 805 Ridge Road, also in Webster. And my parents at 610 Webster Road are my primary babysitter for my 3 children over the last 15 to 20
Wait,
years.
is that your sister? And now
Yeah.
is this all of her?
No,
You're busy
yeah, no.
over there.
Okay,
Good sport.
so additional comments and questions that I'd like to add to this for Mr. Higgins that haven't been addressed. One, the economic impact and plan for the village. I know that they're saying it's not a moneymaker, but what's being spent and what is coming in, and is there a return on investment? I think the secondary part to that is a return on investment for the community. Maybe we will make money or break even, but is it at a loss for other things, i.e. disruption to the people who live in the area and their concerns we spent tonight? The other thing, a demand for these services. So there was a discussion from Mr. White about this great facility on Phillips Road. Are they not able to take those additional 7 haulers that the village would like to take? Is there a demand for this service for people who live in the vicinity of Webster or the village? And then the last one is comparables. So we talked about 1934. Where do these types of facilities exist today? And how does it compare to the landscape and geography of this current one across Webster Road? So what's the kind of density of the population? And then, Mr. Higgins, you were kind enough to speak to the economic impact on the houses in that area. With due respect, I do not believe that is your expertise. So I request to have further knowledge and information from somebody with that expertise if we go back to adding more services how does that change the value of the homes, right? Many of these residents spoke that they've lived there for 20, 30, 40 years. As the increase in neighborhoods in that area and the decrease in those services at the village treatment plant, I'm guessing it will improve their house value over time. But if we start ramping up services, suddenly it's going to start decreasing value. Now, I'm no expert, nor is Mr. Higgins, so I'd like to see somebody who can speak to that. If additional services are added instead of decreasing, how does that change the home value in that area? So those are all new things.
Thank you.
You got it. I took really good notes, and I like being close to the end. The thing that I would also like to add, and I know that this was pointed out, but it bears repetition. We came here tonight.
Wait a minute, you told us you
I
were
lied.
going to talk about new things.
That's all right. We came here tonight because this is our forum. So you had spoken in the beginning about how many calls did you receive and how many conversations. We're here tonight for that reason. And just for your own, Mr. Newton, information, just a show of hands, how many people are here tonight who were not a part of the last settlement? So we spoke before, Mr. White spoke at length about the settlement. Most of the people here tonight had nothing to do with that, just for your own knowledge. Thank you.
Next, please.
Jim Annis, 1222 Superior Drive. All right, so what inspections have been performed regarding
Is this your?
Uh,
Sorry, sir, it's not.
I'm hearing you speak. That's why.
I'm over here. You sent in
All right,
a letter?
perfect, you have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you weren't going to be here tonight, so that's.
I wasn't going to be here.
Gotcha, okay, I was
Okay,
confused
so
when you
that's
said it
been
and I was
talked
looking
about,
down.
it's been reviewed.
Yep,
All right,
yeah, we got it.
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry, when you said it, I'm like, I thought this person wasn't going to be here tonight, so, all right. Excellent, thank you.
He sent in a letter as well as a committee, but he made it.
Steve Peppersmith, 1233 Wall Road. Been there since 1984. We've gone through various stages with the smell, where it's gotten better, gotten worse. I'm all in favor of the upgrades that are needed to improve the smell and improve the plant, but not in favor of adding, haulers to use the plant.
Perfect, thank you.
Is there a breakdown? Maybe that's another question for Mr.
If
Higgins.
you're going to speak, you got to go up there, and please state your name again.
Katie Borchers. Mr. Higgins, if you can add to your list a breakdown of the changes that are in respect to the odors and the existing work that is done there versus the changes that are for new services that want to be added. I think that was another kind of point of confusion.
Well, I think it's pretty clear, it's just the septic receiving building as new services, everything else existing plant operation.
For the purpose of reducing odor is the question. Are the changes,
Gotcha, to the existing system.
right, the changes
Which
to the
would be the
existing
clarifier and the,
Yeah.
it's
And
only
again, back to-
clarifier and the digester.
Thank you.
And I
Back to
think he
those
was
words of
gonna-
likely versus kind of research and true information. Thanks.
Trickling filter has no odor, and it's gonna be the digester and clarifier.
Brian Donovan again. One other question for him.
Wait, no, I don't think we ever approved multiple trips up to the podium. Come on, if we don't have a little fun, my God, it's 9, 10 at night. My kids are home trying to go to bed.
Could you specify what improvements you are putting in to allow you to apply for a speedies permit? Can you tell us what it is? And the other thing is, it would be nice, well, there's two buildings in the back, the old drying bed and the steel building that are in a floodplain right now. And it would, I don't know if they should be, they use the drying beds to put sludge in when they can't haul the sludge out. So, and that's right in the flood zone. And it probably shouldn't be used for that. Okay, it's up totally in the back west side of the creek.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if those were gonna be torn down, and it would be nice if they put up a 12-foot privacy fence around the whole place.
All right, any final comments, please?
Mark Bernard, 1267 Wall Road.
Sorry, 12 what?
1267. My concern is that these upgrades do not address odors. We're told they'll be the same or better. Well, if they're the same, it's terrible. I mean, this plant is a public nuisance. So they're proposing things that do not address that problem.
Yeah, I think that was the last comment that she came up and made, that she wants specifics on which of these upgrades to the existing system will have positive impact on odor.
Yeah, I don't have that question. Again, my concern is that if the odors are going to be the same or better, that doesn't address that does not solve the odor problems.
But my understanding is there haven't been only one incident that was documented since.
Well, every time they're.
2012, right?
That's
Or
only one
2018.
person.
Every time I go by the creek, it smells terrible. No, we're adjacent to that property. So
I can attest to
the
that.
plant is a public nuisance, and we don't have free enjoyment of our property.
Okay.
We live with it because it's
Thank
not as bad as it used to be. We'll live with it because it could be worse, right?
Jim Annis, 1222 Imperial Drive. In regards to the sludge and the smell of the creek, Mill Creek being right behind those two sludge buildings, I mean, you're talking 10, 12 foot is the distance between the greenhouse and the creek itself. I was there years ago and I asked questions about, when's the last time anybody's inspected the drains in this building? Never was the answer. Okay. I asked multiple questions about inspections and stuff like that regarding things of concern about like odor and runoff and stuff like that. There's no bladder underneath any of these buildings. They don't treat their own water runoff. You have a creek right behind them. That's correct, right? It's not correct? You capture all of the runoff in your facility. How does it make it into the creek then? You guys always say that. Again, it does stink. And it does have problems with foam and everything else in the creek. So.
Okay. Thank you. All right, one or two more, please. Anybody else? Last call.
Did they touch the water debris? It's pretty easy solution.
I think that would go into questions that are being pushed back.
All right. I'm going to close out the public comment portion of the meeting for the evening, and I think you got one comment.
Right, so what we're going to do is allow the applicant to respond in writing. Matt, I'm assuming you've been a good note taker.
You know what, that's what I was gonna ask. I tried to jot down as many questions as I could, but is there gonna be some sort of
Yeah,
list that?
I'll tell you what we'll do. I don't want to throw Catherine and Josh under the bus, but perhaps you could send an email as to your sum and substance summary. Get that over to Matt and Mr. White. And I think that together with your notes, you should be able to put together a response.
Is this being recorded, video?
Yeah,
it is.
You can probably use that then too, right?
Yeah, no,
It's a little cumbersome.
It is. We'll try the best in between what he has and some of the notes.
We have minutes from everything.
So,
go
ahead.
Sure. Yeah, a couple things. Mr. White, I just want to understand a couple items here. So, I just, in terms of, I guess, running parallel paths with Matt's response. Just a few questions I had, that maybe you can give me your thoughts as well. One is, so when you read the language in 35091, extension of non-conforming uses, and it talks about the ZBA being able to prescribe reasonable restrictions depending upon the nature and history of the use of the treatment. I'm curious as to if you've got a plant that is operating, generally speaking, within the confines of the law, but there's these collateral impacts of noise, of odor, of traffic, etc. Whether or not that requires this board to essentially be locked into the fact that that's the history, and unless these new modifications of the plant are going to increase that baseline, which according, of course, to the citizens, is already problematic. But it's the applicant's position that if, albeit already problematic, if they're not more problematic, then that is not something that the board could deny. That's one question. You with me on that? You don't need to answer that now, but you understand my question?
I understand your question. I think the town's own statute answered it. It's the deleterious effects of such extension. Not, so you have a baseline. So you gotta focus on.
I understand.
The
That's why I asked the
extension.
question. So you think it's just self-evident?
I think it is self-evident. I do not believe that this board has the authority to, in effect, regulate the current operation of the village's wastewater treatment plant, which is
what we stated.
Right. So that's why I'm asking the question, because a lot of what the folks here are saying, you know, over a cup of coffee or a cocktail is certainly relevant and important, but the way where we find ourselves right now legally with the history of the plant and the statute that we have to work with may not be compelling enough to the board because of the fact that it's existed, if you will, in this poor existence. They've set their own bar, in other words. So if you have any case law or interpretation on that, I'd be interested in taking a look at that. That's one issue. The second issue is there's an abandonment here of these septic trucks, because you, as the applicant, the village, agreed to discontinue that. It's been over a year since it's been doing that. And I recognize that it was part and parcel of a lawsuit, but it was a private lawsuit freely and voluntarily entered into by the village. And I ask that you respond as to whether there's been an abandonment here, because if there's been an abandonment of these septic trucks, then this board would not be forced to approve those, or could, I believe, curtail them if we approve the balance of the expansion. And then the third issue would be, I'd be interested in understanding, I guess in some reverse engineering, if there was a denial by this board, how that would impact the settlement to the extent that now this kind of this $100,000 bar becomes somewhat of a moot issue. I guess the plant would be forced to continue to operate without the improvements, I suppose. I don't know how long that lasts or what utilization there is, but I think some understanding as to that outcome would be beneficial for the board and the residents that are opposed to it, to understand what the downside is of kind of pressing the envelope. That's just a practical matter, not necessarily a legal matter. So those three issues would certainly help me advise the board when we get to that point in time. And anything else you'd like to your learned experience you'd like to share with the board. And obviously, this board is aware, and the residents are aware, that if we make a determination and we do not approve the application, and it's not founded on facts in this record that apply to the elements of 350-91, then we would expose the town to an Article 78 if it was determined that our findings were arbitrary and capricious, which is the standard that we're up against. So that's it. I'll look for those kind of reasons.
Excuse me, can I have a clarification on something you said? So, this was supposed to be a variance meeting, right?
No, it's considered a use, it's considered the extension of a non-conforming use. Existing non-conforming use.
And the reason it's pre-existing non-conforming is because it was established prior to the zoning regulations. This was established back in 1934, I believe you indicated, and I believe the zoning was 1945 or 40s.
Don't want to say if something's grandfathered in, it's like how the plant exists right now, it can exist as it is right now. So like once you start moving a building or doing something else, it's not grandfathered anymore, it's new business, right?
That's right.
Which is why they're concerned.
There is criteria that we're limited in making that determination upon, and that's kind of what I'm driving at here.
Okay.
So it was pre-existing to the residents' interpretation poorly. So the question becomes, that's the standard. If it's not making it more poor, that's a terrible expression, but it's not making it more poor, then they may be entitled to.
It's not the industry standard, it's just their standard.
Correct.
Perpetuity.
Correct.
Yeah, but perpetuity.
It may be formal or substance.
I think an interesting issue is, because it's not defined in the Webster Code, what is an extension or increase of a non-conforming use? Like when do you cross that threshold that it becomes an extension? Because I could argue that, forget about the septic receiving station for a moment, but that everything else, if the village were just to do that, would not even need the approval of this board. Because I would argue that that's not an extension or an increase of the pre-existing use.
Understood. So are we clear on next steps? I think the question to you is, we're going to table this matter to a future date. This board now meets monthly in 2023. That's going to be January 10th, February 14th, March 14th. Preference would be February.
I think they'll give the parties enough time to exchange information. You got the holidays, you got some things that are going to slow us down. So I would suggest we do something.
So the request from this board would be to table this continuation of this to February 14th, 2023. And if we could set a target date for January 31st for some of the response, written response back to Joshua. And then he'll get it to us.
Will we get that also?
Yes,
Will we get the response also?
You'll hear him at the meeting.
Or at least the question?
You'll hear him at the meeting.
But we won't have time to process it?
Let us see it. If there's not any prohibition, I don't know as though the applicant would have an objection. We can post that somewhere.
I know the attorneys would like to see a copy of their responses as well.
So the answers to the questions, we'll get that posted on the town website so it will be accessible to well.
Thank you.
Okay, so target date for the response, January 31st.
When?
And the target meeting date will be February 14th. If you need to adjust that to March, just let us know. a couple weeks in advance.
But first, Josh was going to supply us with a list of questions to respond to.
Yes.
And when might we expect that?
I think we can get that out before the holiday, right? So, yeah. Before the holiday.
Okay.
So you have a full
You have a whole month.
I just wouldn't want to get it January 15th.
Okay, all right. All in favor of tabling this meeting to February 14th, 2023?
Yes.
Okay, we will see you back here in February.